Yes, Laura, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
And we welcome those who are watching on Vine Television
Yes, we do.
and on our YouTube channel, and those watching New Wave Cable TV Channel 15 in the communities of Fairfield, Wayne City, McLeansboro, Albin, Mount Carmel, Carmi, North City, Newton, Olney, and Sumner. And welcome aboard, everybody. And Laura, good morning. And thanks for coming in again on a Monday morning.
All right. Well, thanks again for having me.
Well, you're quite welcome. We got a lot to talk about this morning. Where to begin?
You know, that's always my problem, Mark. I have a lot to say, but I don't know how to say it. I'm not very organized with it. And, you know, I think I told that Melissa Garrison, I went and heard her speak, and oh my goodness, I mean, she did the entry and she did the middle and, you know, the delivery, and she came in for a landing that was just out of this world. And I'm like, how does she do that? I mean, Rodney and I laugh. We were just like a tennis ball. We're just batting our places all over. But anyway, don't even know where to start, but I might start with our church.
Oh, that's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I always like to repeat anything that Rodney said that is worthy. Well, not that everything's not worthy of repeating, but anyway, he, you know what he did? He had our sound guy, Mr. Kip, pull up on the big screen a live shot of the Wailing Wall.
Wow.
Now, Mark, is that not crazy?
That is awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I've got the site somewhere on one of these papers, and I think it's Kotel, Kotel Cam.
Kotel Cam.
Kotel Cam.
Okay.
And so anybody can get on this. But isn't it absolutely profound that at any given time we can get, and because of a satellite, we can see the Wailing Wall live in Jerusalem. People's walking around, and it's just like crazy. Mark, It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the way technology is so much advanced.
Yeah.
From whenever to now, you know.
Exactly. And, you know, he got to talking about Revelation 11:9. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. And, you know, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, people preach that scripture. And don't you know, Mark, they had to scratch their head. How could that be?
Yeah,
How could that be? And now we know exactly how it can be. And there is a live cam on Jerusalem right now for all the world to see 24/7 out of every given day of our lives.
Wow. You know, that's something that people need to experience if you've not gone there. And give us the site again that people can go to.
Kotel Cam, and it's Kotel Cam, CAM. And if you just Google that, you'll find it. And it is just absolutely. And he kept that up on the screen for a while, and it's just, you just have to shake your head. And they're like 8 hours ahead of us. So it's just really weird to think that, you know, those people are, and there's always someone there.
Yeah.
Just always. So anyhow, God's right again, is how he put it. He's right again. And he also made a comment, and I guess I never really thought about it, but he said, we have seen with our own eyes more prophecy fulfilled than the whole world's history combined.
Wow.
Can you think about that, Mark? You know, the people that are denying that we are the generation, this is the season, has to think about that. Now, how can you explain that away?
Exactly.
How can you? So those are some things that I just thought were kind of neat that I wanted to pass on. Another thing that he said, and this is shifting gears, he said that studies are showing that 6 to 7% of the churches are speaking out on the truth on moral, social dilemmas.
So that percentage seems to be low, but I'm curious to find out maybe in another month or two how higher it gets.
Okay.
Because that will really tell you that people are starting to pay attention more and more to what is going on around us.
You are right. And yes, some big things are shifting. And we know, is it later this month, there's going to be a big vote.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, things are shifting. And it's like, you know, out of 100 churches, 6 or 7 are speaking out on some of these big issues. And that's kind of scary. But here's a good thing, too. 43,000 pastors have signed a petition that we will not forsake God's laws.
Amen.
Yeah.
And let's get that higher. Yeah. Wow. That's
no
awesome.
kidding. And Rodney even said, if I knew how to sign this petition, I would. He thinks it's awesome. And these 43,000 American pastors, the way I understand it, are willing to go to jail if they have to in order not to forsake God's laws. And Rodney's comment was, we always have to default to God's laws. We always have to. And God says in the Bible for us to follow our government and follow our laws. But when it absolutely defies what he's already told us, how can we? How can we do that? We just absolutely cannot do that. So I just think, we need to pray for these 43,000 pastors and hope that more, because we can't pull this off standing alone. There are safety in numbers, as we say.
Oh, absolutely.
And there really is. The more
That's
people
true.
that we get on the side of the right, the stronger we become. So, united we stand.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's just a few things, and I don't know if you want me to keep going or
Oh,
break.
sure. Yes, you go right ahead.
All right. Well, I've got some different things. I want to share this with you guys.
Sure.
All right. Y'all know I'm a prepper, and something bizarre. I'm going to pause right here. Something really bizarre happened last week. I do business with one of our listeners, and I'm not going to say his name, but many of you would know him. And I was calling his business, hoping to get his girls, and I accidentally called him. And I'm like, I didn't mean to call you. But, after I started talking to him, I really think it was a divine appointment. I mean, he preached to me about 30 minutes of the 36 minutes we were on the phone. And you know what? You never know who is a fellow prepper. You never know the ones that are really on it. And he said, Lora, I have got a smokehouse, and I have got goats and chickens, and he named off all of these things. And he says, I've got a barn full of this and a barn full of that. And he says, whenever times really get tough, if it gets down to it, he said, I have about 15 people that's going to join me, and we're going to just live as a small community. I thought, oh, that is so cool, and there's so many other people. And there was a doctor that Facebooked me, sent me a message after Monday's show, and he and his wife enjoy the show, appreciate what we're talking about, Mark, and they also, too, are getting prepared. And it's shocking to me how many people, this person and that person, and they'll come tell me, Laura, we're doing this too. Laura, and it's from so many different walks of life. But it's so encouraging when I hear that people are prepping, because, the more people, and I've said this often, the more people that get prepared, if we have chaos crisis here in our neck of the woods, the easier it's going to be.
Oh, sure.
And so anyway, a really cool thing, and I don't have the scripture pulled up, and I certainly am going to cobble it up, but the scripture that talks about how there'll be a wealth transfer.
Yes.
There'll be money given. Is it in Proverbs?
I believe it is. I'll see if I can find that.
Okay, all right. Talking about how the money will be taken from them and given to us. And something really neat happened where many people wouldn't call it a wealth transfer, but there was a big amount of money to Tom and I that kind of got laid back into our laps because this person had a blessing, and they passed it down to us. Well, I really thought about that and thought, I know what needs to be done with this money. I know that we need to make preparations in case Southern Illinois is in one of these troublesome things that's happened all around the world. And so this little bit of money that we had, I took a piece of it and I stocked up on some food. And you know what came to my mind, Mark? Now, food's real important to me right now.
Sure.
I watch all this scary stuff, and I watch all these people, the doomsday, and it makes you just want to run out and buy a whole bunch of food and a whole bunch of water, and it really does. Do you have that verse?
I do.
Read it?
I don't want to interrupt you,
Oh,
Peter.
no,
Go ahead.
heavens
Go
no.
ahead.
Well, if you want to read it, that's all right.
Yeah,
No.
it's in, and I think this is what you were talking about. The NIV version of it, it shows in Proverbs 13, chapter 22, where it talks about a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
it.
that's
That's it.
Yeah.
Mark, You get 5 gold stars today, buddy. Okay. But anyhow, so I went and I got this food, and it's laying all around. And I always check labels, to make sure that it has a good long shelf life to it. And you'd be surprised, some of them. So anyway, it's all sitting in my kitchen. And you know what came across me? Give 10% of it to the church.
Oh, wow.
And Mark, now I'm not kidding you, that was painful. 10% of it to the church. It was painful. It really was. And I just want to be frank with you and open with you that it was kind of hurt. So you know what I did? I wanted to be fair, and I knew which ones were the most expensive things. And I said, Blaze, I got a job for you, buddy. Oh, dear. Mama's got another job for me. I said, I want you to count everything that I got and then take 10% of it and put it in a bag for the church. And so I turned my head, and I just got busy doing other things, and I, kind of knew that he was doing it. And then I turned back. He says, Mama, I've got it. I turned back around. He says, Mom, and I could almost cry. He says, I picked out the best things for the church.
Oh, wow. How awesome is that?
Glory, wow. It was. And it just made my heart melt, because I knew that I hate to say the word scared, but I am concerned about what's to come. And I really do think that America could experience famine. We may not. I don't know. But a lot of the people are preparing us. You might want to get prepared. It could happen. The droughts and the pestilence and things are leading to this. And when I turned back around, he said, Mama, I gave the very best things to the church. Mark, wow. You want to talk about a splash of conviction being thrown upon me. I thought, good for you, buddy. Yeah. And that's exactly what we should do. We tend to bring our leftovers to the church. We tend to bring something that we're not using to the church, or something that we got something better. That's what we normally do. And so anyhow, and then the very next day, you know what I heard? If this isn't God confirming, I was listening to some preaching on television, and it said, if you don't share your food in a time of crisis with other people, your food will not be supernaturally protected. It will mold, it will get stolen, it will not be covered. And I thought, whoa, that is a confirmation. We as Christians are called to share. We are called to be that Church of Acts. And I heard another guy say that we are living Acts Part 2 right now.
I believe that. I heard someone else say that not too long ago.
Woo! Yeah, that gave you chills.
It sure did.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to look and read those scriptures and know and see. Mark, it had to have been wonderful. They were sharing everything.
Yeah.
And no one was in need. My goodness, if we could only grab hold of that. But it's too easy to be, no, I'm going to need this. No, I've got to keep this for me.
It's for me.
It's for me.
Yeah.
And, I have high hopes. We do have a group of people that if times get hard, you have to have a community. John Shorey preaches that you'll have to have a community. If you try to go at it alone, you're not going to make it. But if times get really tough, you've got to have, that food family and that water family and that protection family and planting and growing family. That wouldn't be me. I kill everything. But you have to have groups of people.
You bring up something very interesting. That's what these area food banks are for. These area food banks that churches are that are involved in. That's what it's for. It's for people that want to stock up, and that's what the food is there. If it's available for you, go for it.
Absolutely.
And stock up on it, because prepare yourself.
Yes,
because it's available for us to take advantage of.
Yes, and I would just personally like to see our whole church. We have 2 huge shelves that Rodney has put up, and they're not quite full yet, but they're getting there. I would like to see just walls laced with food in case we get to a terrible crisis. We want people to come to the church. We want them to come in and see God's people working, God's faith in motion. And that's what we want them to see in these desperate times, because people are listening when things get out of whack, when things get scary, when things get just crazy, and when times get desperate. We want it to be God's hands feeding those people, God's hands giving a cup of cold water in His name. And that's what we need to start doing, is don't put it off.
Yeah. Don't
put it off. There's some people, Mark, Rodney pulled up September financial crisis, and he says literally thousands, financially speaking, of secular and religious speakers they're all saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and they're all saying September.
Yeah, that month is really sticking out more and more. You're hearing more things surrounding that month.
You are, and we could just name a list. And I mean, I can and I can't wait to see what takes place in September, because there's just so many things stacking up and lining up.
Yeah, wow.
You know?
It's lining up with prophecy.
It
sure is.
It's all coming together. And so anyhow, we'll jump into more later, but that
great.
is later when we come back, I would like to share a quote from Anne Graham, Billy Graham's daughter.
Anne Graham Lotz.
Yes, Lotz. I couldn't remember
Graham
her last
Lotz,
name.
and she's on it. She is on it. I can't wait to hear it, but I think I know what you're going to tell.
Okay, good.
We'll check that out next hour when we come back, as we're heading into 9 o'clock. It's Mark and Laura, and the Vine Morning Show continues for you here on this Monday. More to come right here at Real Life Radio. That is Matthew West here at Real Life Radio, 105.5 and 90.9 The Vine. Welcome back to the Vine Morning Show here on a Monday morning. I'm Mark, along with Laura. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Mark.
You know, we were talking earlier about prepping and preparing for things to come. You know, whether when you think about going out and buying groceries for a week, and being ahead, that you don't have to go to the store later on. This is something similar to what we're talking about here. It's just staying ahead of the game here, preparing and be ready for something that may not happen, but you're ready in case it does, so it doesn't happen to you and take you and catch you off guard.
Absolutely. And Mark, as I told you, this stuff is always in my face. So my mom says that I'm just, a little bit heavier into it than I maybe need to be, but it's just always in front of my face. But one article that I saw, New York City, maybe the whole state, has a half a day's of food.
We talked about that,
Did
I think,
we?
before. We mentioned that, I believe, last week.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
But, when you stop and you think about how big New York City is, and they only have a half a day of food, can you think of the chaos that would happen if something would to strike in that area? And that's terrible to think about.
If the trucks couldn't get in, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it could happen. And we've watched it on that soil destruction happen. And we know that anything's possible. Anything's possible. But I've been asked, what do you stock? What do you store up? And so many people don't even know where to start, and they don't have the money, and it poses many problems. But I've heard many of them say, just start with a 3-day bag. Something in the government has little commercials. Have you seen one yet?
I have not seen one
Okay,
yet. No.
I've seen one. My sister's seen one. It's just kind of turmoil, and I think the one I saw was somebody just kind of reached and grabbed a bag, and if memory serves. But anyway, they're telling people kind of get prepared. But a life straw. Have you heard of life straws?
I have. I've heard.
Yes. Those are a big deal. I mean, the way I understand it, some of them are geared to where you could drink out of a muddy pond, through this life straw. And some are better than others. But life straw is a real good one from what they're saying. A rain poncho, if you would get caught in the rain. A fleece blanket. You die from being too cold faster than without water, Mark.
Hypothermia sets in really quick if you're exposed.
Really quick.
Very, very fast.
Yes, so that's number one.
Yes.
That's number one, is having a way to protect yourself from the elements and to stay warm. A fleece blanket. A fleece will warm you up quicker than anything, won't it, Mark?
Sure will.
Oh, my goodness, I love that. And this is, it's not super for radio or TV, but toilet paper. You might want to roll a toilet paper in your bag to get you by a few days. Granola bars, beef jerky, trail mix, things that have long shelf life that will stay good, when they're packaged.
Right.
Because you're going to be hungry. We all know that. Water bottles, they are heavy, but even a few, to get you through in a pinch. And this is really out there, but what if we did have a solar flare? What if we did have an EMP bomb? And they talk about it's highly likely that it could happen. And what if, Mark, we'd be walking home. That's what if.
That's exactly right, yeah.
We would
We
be.
would, yeah.
And so keeping a bag like this in your car is not a bad idea. We know that there's been some solar flares that's come closer. I don't even know how to explain it because I'm not that smart about it. I'll just tell you the truth, but I know that we've had some close calls with things.
It's like in the wintertime when they always come out and they tell you what to stock in your car if you're stranded and everything. I can't tell you the number of people that I have spoken with that has had a situation happen where they have been stranded and they don't have those items, and they think about now that's the first thing they do is to prepare whenever the weather gets bad. They have the blankets, they have the food, they have the water, they have a flashlight, they have a candle. They do that. They make sure. This is the same thing.
It is.
Because you just never know.
You just don't. And, it takes me back to there was this couple, and they had a couple kids, and they were going up a mountain, and it was a terrible snowstorm, and they got stranded. And after a while, a man's going to feel it his duty to get out and go get help. He shouldn't have. He died. And the mom and the two kids made it. They stayed in the car. But if they would have just had supplies, just a small bag with a little bit of food, and the snow made water easy enough, so that was taken care of, and the warm blankets, they could have rode out the storm together in that car. But they didn't have anything, and of course, any man, you feel like you got to fix it, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Especially when situations are beyond your control. You want to jump right in and fix it.
Right. And you're the leader.
Yeah.
You're the leader, and that's just what men do. But if they would have just been prepared, and I just think, why don't we take these lessons, hard lessons, that other people have had to learn? And, I always tell you about that baby in the Katrina storm.
Yes.
Oh, Mark, when they held that baby up to the camera, oh, my goodness, I'll never forget it. And I believe God positioned me there in front of that TV at that very moment for that to penetrate into me. Get prepared. Shout to others. Proclaim. Sound the alarm. Get prepared. Paper and pen. You might need to write something down. A flashlight. A change of clothes. Wipes. Bandages. Wash rag. Floss. Toothpick. Scissors. A little... first aid kit, tweezers. You don't know. I mean, my goodness, how painful is a splinter? And if you just had some tweezers to relieve yourself to pull that splinter out, just think of what little things like that. And pictures of loved ones. Now, we hate to think about that, but don't you know that last big earthquake, a picture of their loved one, that would have been nice to have. And some probably had it and some probably didn't.
Well, you remember back when it was when 9/11 and the World Trade Center was hit, and those people that they showed on television that had a picture of a family member that they hadn't had any communication with for days, because there was some communication interruption, and the last known location was in the World Trade Center, and they were holding pictures up. If you've seen this person, please call this number below or contact so-and-so. But how many times did we see that mentioned? Same thing.
Over and over again. And it was very helpful.
Yes.
I'm sure to the New York people that those were familiar faces possibly. So, but yeah, having a picture of somebody, because if we did have an earthquake, I mean, it could bring down house after house after house and just totally demolish, and having those things might be nice.
Would be very nice.
And the first 3 days, first 3 or 4 days, it's going to be your hardest. You're rattled, and just having a little pack to get you through. It's and no more than it would cost you to do that going to a dollar store. Now, you can't get a Life Straw from a dollar store, but most of those things on there, and you'd be surprised what you have in your house already. Some of you may not even have to spend a dime. Get you a little backpack and throw some stuff in there and just have it ready in case you would need it. So just
prepare it. And I know people that have like a plastic tote.
Oh, yeah.
And that's perfect to put things in and to store it. And it's like a first aid kit, but it's an emergency kit is what they call it.
Yes, good for them.
And, they have granola bars, things that don't expire.
Yes.
Canned food's another good thing to put in there.
Right.
Things that don't have an expiration date on it is good to have.
Right.
And, when you stop and you think about it, and you find out all the stuff that's in there. That's perfect to have
Yes,
in situations that you don't know. And it's easy accessible in case it has to be pulled out and used, no matter what the situation is.
Right. And after you get that 3-day bag in place, then every time you walk through the store door, grab a few things and just throw them in your tote, like what you said.
Yep.
Just keep throwing, and you will be surprised. I mean, you could look and you'd be surprised how quickly it can mount up.
There are clear plastic totes and colored plastic totes. They have it in a clear plastic tote, so if they have to grab it very quickly,
Good.
they know they know what that is. They know things are positioned strategically in this tote that they know that's the tote they have to grab to take with them or to use them wherever they have to go at that point in
Right.
time.
That's excellent. I love that idea. And can we shift to Miss Graham?
Sure. Go
All
right ahead.
right. Well, this is good news for any of you that didn't hear a few minutes ago. Billy Graham's daughter is Anne Graham Lotz. Is Lotz what you said?
Yes, Anne Graham
Yes.
Lotz.
Okay. And she was interviewed. I guess she had an interview with Alan Combs because this news report speaks of that. But they had an article in WND News. That's a great news source if anybody wants to look these people up. But she said, "We are coming close to the end of human history. Our world is unraveling," she told Alan Combs on his Fox News radio program. "I think the whole world senses, especially those who follow the news, sense that something is happening that is very unsettling." And then she said, "And so I put together that I believe we are coming close to the end of human history as we know it." Whew! That's a pretty profound statement, isn't it?
That is. But when you stop and you think who that's coming from, there you
Yes.
go. That's someone else that studies the Bible, just like her father and her brother.
Absolutely. And hasn't Billy Graham just changed the world?
He sure has.
And he's invested in his own kids. And it got me to thinking of the other statements that these prophetic voices, I'll call them, and I'm sure they wouldn't want me to call them that, but John Hagee says something's about to change. That's a big one. And doesn't that say it all? Something's about to change. And we know it's true. Mark Bilt states that we are in the Super Bowl of human history. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you some pretty powerful things.
Yes.
And for any of you that hear my new shows this week, this will be a repeat, but I want to share this with many people don't get to listen again. Bill Salas, he's a big prophetic end times talk, and he states that if you don't believe that we are in end times, you need to read more Bible and watch more news. We've discussed that before. Now, this is a good one. Perry Stone said months ago, Mark, I can't even tell you how many months ago, he said, "We will know if these 4 blood moons falling on the feast days are just a coincidental astronomical alignment or if they really mean something by the volcanic activity." And a recent report just showed that there are 40, maybe over 40 active volcanoes at this time. Now, does that not give you a chill down your bones?
It sure does.
Oh, my goodness. And then John Shorey's book, it says his opinion plainly, The Window of the Lord's Return, 2012 to 2020. And you should hear him explain all of this. It will just, it doesn't even shock me anymore because I've heard it so much. It's just normal life for me. Sure. I just really think this man is got some good thoughts. And Rick Wiles, oh, Mark, this one almost bring a tear to your eye. He says, our ministry, and I don't think I brought this off last week, forgive me if I did, but Rick Wiles said, our ministry is transitioning. We soon feel the need to move from warning the masses to focusing on just preparing the saints.
Oh, wow.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
You think about it, that he believes that his ministry, the masses are not listening. They don't want it. They don't want to hear it. They don't believe it. They're scoffing it. And he says, I believe that our time is more well spent in these last hours preparing the saints for what is coming and shutting the door to that. Ooh, and I told that to a friend of mine who is a pastor, and you know what he said? He said, I've been thinking the same thing.
Same thing?
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And he didn't hear this that I know of at all. And I've been thinking the same thing. And Rick Wiles says the true church will soon go underground. You think about what a radical change would have to happen to cause the true church to go underground. But that, and then Joel Richardson's book, The Islamic Antichrist, and Dr. David Reagan. Do you ever listen to him?
Yes.
Isn't he good?
He is very good. In fact, I saw him yesterday morning.
Did you really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love this little guy. And he's just plain about it. Israel becoming a nation ensures that we are the generation. He just doesn't seem to make any bones about it.
No. And these guys that are making these proclaiming what's going to happen, they're not young guys. They've been around for a long time, Laura. Most of them have been around for a long time and have been studying the Word, so they have seen how things are progressing from 15, 20, 30 years ago up to the present.
It's true. That just gives me chills, what you just said, and it's so true.
But it is. You look at David Reagan, you look at Pastor John Hagee, you look at Perry Stone, some of those guys that have been around for a while that have been studying from day one when things are starting to happen and continually following along with what prophecy is talking about, or what prophecy is happening now along with what Scripture is talking about. They know it. They're spot on. How can people not understand and see that?
No, I just can't understand why people can't see what we're seeing. But other than that, they're just not looking. But if you choose not to look, then you have to listen to the people that do have the guts to look and take their word for it. If you're not going to do the research and look into it on your own, you really must give this consideration that I need to at least be listening to the people that are watching.
Yeah.
And
learn. That's what it is. That's why they're out there teaching and informing us, because it's a learning experience for people that may not think this is going to happen.
Right.
But they know. They're just teaching that this is to come. Things are to come. Here's to prepare for it.
Yes, that's right. And when we come back, I'd like to share some thoughts on that. Back in the day, people would say, oh, maybe my kids or my grandkids would see the day. But now we're hearing people say, I believe I will see the day, Lord willing.
Yeah.
And that is, just several people here, there, and yonder. And I'd like to talk about one of those preachers right now, or when we come back.
Okay, sure. We'll do that when we come back here in just a moment with Lora Greathouse this morning here on the Vine Morning Show. And we're going to come back and talk more with Laura here in a moment, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Vine Morning Show. Here we are on this Monday morning. I'm Mark, along with Laura. And Laura, it's great to have you in this morning, as we've been talking about a lot of interesting topics this morning. And you have something there that looks very interesting you want to share with us, right?
Yes, my dear friend gave me this huge booklet here, and it's called A Global Call to Prayer. And on the front of it, it has so many things that have happened over the past several months. And it's good for us to kind of reflect and remember these things, because there's so much, Mark, we forget.
We do.
And we just kind of shove it out of our mind. But the Syria crisis, 100,000 killed, 3 million refugees forced to flee after Islamic State attacks. Mark, I had a dream the other night, and I'm going to tell you about it. It was very scary, and I just remember that we were like invaded, our neighborhood or the group of people around me, and we were given a little bit of warning. And whoever these people were told us that they were going to kill us that night. And the way they were going to kill us is they was going to cut our heads off and shove us into a body of water. And I can remember everybody was just depressed and down, and they were scared, and there was just kind of this hush across everywhere, and they were just like, we're doomed. And I'm like, no, we're not doomed. We still have the rest of the day. Let's work. We can get ourselves out of this. Let's get radical. Let's do some things. In my dream, I'm really trying to convince people there's still time, and we can still act, and we still have the power to take care of these things. And so anyhow, I just remember trying to rally people up, and when I woke up, I was scared, Mark. It doesn't sound that scary when you're telling it, but when you're living it in your dream, and I was so frightened, and I don't remember ever doing this before, I got out of my bed, and I got on my hands and knees, and I prayed. I was scared. And that was 3 o'clock to something, almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and I remember, this is real life, I'm skipping to real life, I went to my brother's house that day, and we were talking about, and I hadn't even told him about the dream, and he said, he said, I just had something come over me today. He said, it's just a terrible feeling, and he said, never really had this before, but he said, I have a terrible feeling that something really, really bad is on its way. And I could tell by looking in his eyes, he was dead serious. And he says, I don't know if these past 20 years that God has given me a gift of foreseeing these things, or if I'm just crazy. He says, I'm not sure which. And he kind of laughed. And of course, I know it's the above. He's been given a gift, and he's opened my eyes to so many things in our whole church. We wouldn't be sitting here today you wouldn't have this discussion with me if he hadn't impressed upon my heart that time is really, really short and opened my eyes to many of these things. But I just thought it was really bizarre on the same day that we both had this terrible warning, mine through a dream so bad that I would get out of my bed and kneel down and pray that I was so afraid, Lord, help us. Lord God, help us. And he's feeling the same thing as many, 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 many people are. It's like, talking about in Joel, how God's pouring out his Spirit. And many people might find that hard to believe and just think, oh, people's just getting flakier by the decade. But no, it's God.
I believe that because, there are dreams you have that you've gone through something in your life that, okay, and then you may dream about it. But there are more and more people, I think, having prophetic dreams than what there has ever been. Mm-hmm. And, that's an indication that God's speaking to you through this dream.
That's right. And that it's happened to so many people. So many people are coming to me, and they're having these dreams, and they're having these visions, and they're having these things laid upon their heart. And I just know it's God's end times. It's his Spirit, like it says in Joel, and how we'll prophesy, and young, I never get this right, young men will have visions and old men will dream dreams, or vice versa. I never can remember that exactly how that was. But you know what? In this big booklet, and I probably can't put my finger right on it, but it talked about and afterwards, it said in Joel 2, maybe it's 31. Here it is. I actually found it. Thank you, God. He promised a great outpouring, I'm going to read this from this article, of his Spirit would come afterward, after they prayed and fasted. Fasted's almost a bad word anymore, Mark. Nobody wants to fast in this nation. They like food too much. And fasting, I was fasting last week, and not for a long time, and I want to iterate this. I fasted one meal. I fasted until noon, and I really feel like God, gave me a revelation. I'm not going to share it today, but in time to come, I am going to share it with you. But I really feel like that happened because I was fasting and I was praying. I do, Mark. And I think we're missing the boat if we don't fast. God says fast. And all throughout the scriptures, we're fasting and fasting and fasting. And all these wonderful things took place. That would they have taken place if those people had not cleansed their body and cleared their body and gotten closer with God. But anyway, and it came to pass that afterward that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Okay, here we go. Yeah. And your young men, I had it right, but I just said it one on top of the other differently. Your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and the handmaids in those days I will pour out my Spirit. And he is pouring it out just by the bucketfuls. But are we open? Are we ready? Are we spiritually mature to catch it?
Yeah, exactly. That's very good because, we need to be at this point in time in our life. We need to be open. We need to fast. It's like you said, maybe a day fast or maybe just a meal fast is big. Some people fast for maybe maybe a week, 21 days or something. There are people that can go and fast, and they've been blessed more and more often than what they ever dreamed about being blessed because they've been honoring God through their fasting.
That is true. And I can hold this story, or I can say it now. You tell me if I need to wait.
Go right ahead.
Go right ahead. Okay, yes. You just brought me a thought. Glenda Jackson, I believe it was her. She had a husband and kids, and her husband he had just gone mentally insane. He was just a mess, and he was raging out, and she had him at a doctor's office. They committed him to the hospital, and she didn't even have a car or anything at this time. And I'm not prepared to tell this story, so forgive me for it being broken. But she said that the doctors told her that she was going to have to commit him to an insane asylum. And she says during this time, she fasted and prayed, Mark, for 40 days.
Oh, my.
Could you imagine? I can't even imagine how you'd have the power to do anything, but through God.
Through God. I was going to say, God gave her. God gave her the wisdom and the power.
And she said that during this 40-day fasting, all of this was going on with her husband. She just didn't know, and she just kept praying and crying out to God, and she knew that he could change it. And so she went to the doctors, and she was supposed to commit him that day. And she says, I'm not going to commit him. And they said, well, you have to. And she says, I'm not going to. I feel like God's laying it upon my heart for me to take him home. And they said, lady, if you don't commit him, I think they was going to call the authorities on her. And she says, I have a new doctor. And she goes, they said, oh, who's that? And she says, Jesus Christ. And then they said, lady, you're crazy, and if you don't commit him, we're going to call the authorities. She goes, well, I have an attorney too, and it's Jesus also. And they said, lady, you take him home, and we never want to see you again. And so she took him home, and I think that was actually at the end of her 40-day fast. And she said she was praying, and she was visited by an angel. And this angel gave her a sword. She said, I held it in my hands. And this angel said to go lay this sword upon, and this is documented. You know, this man was in bad shape. He was just laying in the bed. He didn't talk. He didn't eat. He was doing nothing. It was terrible. And she was told to lay this sword on this man's body. And she said she went in there to lay the sword on him, and it disappeared, and he got up, and the first thing he wanted to do was eat. He asked for food, and from that moment on, he was fine.
Wow.
He was fine. But if Glenda had not fasted for 40 days and prayed and believed God. Oh, and another thing that was bizarre to tell you and just kind of give you some more thoughts to the story. She says, Lord, I don't have a way to the hospital to get my husband when they was getting ready to commit him. And she said, you're going to have to provide a way. And she goes, just a short while later, this lady just pulled up and said, I'm supposed to take you to the hospital to see your husband. Can you imagine? God sent her a ride even to the hospital to get there to tell these doctors that she was not going to commit him. Isn't that amazing?
Did she know who the lady was?
I don't remember.
Was it a complete stranger?
I don't remember. It seems like it possibly was somebody in their church or somebody that she knew about. But that just shows you how powerful God is for somebody just to come up and say, I'm going to give you a ride when you needed it so desperately right at that time. Isn't that crazy?
That's divine intervention from God.
Divine intervention. And so 40 days. You tell me who'd do that for their husband.
Exactly.
Who'd have the guts to do it? Who would have the knowledge to do it? Who would even believe? And that is the ticket. Who would even believe to do it?
To do it. Wow. Wow, that's powerful stuff.
It is powerful. So fasting is an amazing thing, and we've just shoved it to the wayside. Everybody's too busy. They don't have time, or they're afraid that their body won't hold up, or this or that. And I do think we have to be reasonable about it. And I don't think many of these people have just gone out and done a 40-day fast. I believe many of them have built up to it.
Up to it.
Yes.
Because they tell you, if you're going to fast, start slow and build your way up.
Yes, right.
Because it makes you more stronger.
Yes.
And then you get more of a blessing from God.
Right, and more durable. And yeah, so anyhow, there's just lots of things. Fasting has been on my mind lately, and there's lots of fasting things in here that I just thought, we need to bring that up. We need to talk about fasting a little bit.
And Jensen Franklin has a good book about fasting,
Does he?
too.
I love him.
Yeah, and he's got a good book about fasting.
Okay.
And, it tells you the fast you can take, Daniel fast, and, it just breaks it down, what's involved in fasting. And he recommends which fast you should take or you become involved in if you don't fast on a regular basis. It's a great book. I can't think of the name of it.
Can't either. And Jensen's even in this pamphlet somewhere.
Yeah, but he has a great book on fasting.
Cool. I love that. I love that. So
he's really good about it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're going to come back and talk more with Laura. We're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon when we come back with Laura here in just a moment, so we encourage you to stay tuned. As we're getting ready to wrap up the Vine Morning Show here on this Monday morning, we're going to hold off and give away that CD. The Great Kennedy CD, we'll do that tomorrow. And, you know, sometimes God leads us down paths, Laura, that takes us away from, you know, what we normally do, because I really believe that's how God intends it to be. You know, there was a message there I believe people needed to hear today.
Wow.
And how important things are in life that we deal with on an everyday basis, and how important, you know, people want to, you know, you were talking about fasting, and what a blessing it was to the lady that fasted for 40 days, and look what happened to her in her life, and how important that is. And I think people need to understand that fasting does mean a lot, and can mean a lot. A lot of people may not be able to fast, but because of, you know, maybe a medical situation in their life. But if you can, at least try it and see that God will bless you.
Right, exactly. That is true. And, you know, I fasted in my life, and I know that I need to get back to of a more regular basis, because I do believe that God's hand really moves.
Yes.
I certainly do. Something that I wanted to tell, I meant to tell this earlier, but it's just a great little story to end with.
Sure.
I was listening to this man, and he was doing, I guess, a revival in another country. And whenever he come to the church, there was this older lady back in the back, and she danced during the whole service back in the back. And they told this preacher, they said, that's what she always does, and we let her do it. But we want to tell you why. She was the person to where when missionaries came, they come to eat in her home. And one time, she had missionaries coming, and she only had one can of food. And she prayed to God, and she opened that can, and she fed those missionaries, and it kept refilling and refilling and refilling. And they said every time she comes, she dances in the back of the building, giving praise to God for Him keeping her cup full to where she could give to these missionaries that she had agreed to feed. Is that a powerful story, Mark?
Oh, that's very powerful.
And so she just wants to praise God.
Yeah.
Just praise. Every time she's in His building, in His presence, she just wants to dance and praise, and that's what she does. Can you imagine how touching that was to hear that story?
Wow.
Over one meal, she was able to provide. She didn't have it. She was able to provide by supernatural resources. And she's going to praise God till the day she dies by dancing in His presence. And they said she does it every time.
Wow.
Woo!
Wow.
Isn't that powerful?
Wow. And she receives a blessing each time she does.
I'm sure she does.
Oh my. How awesome is
and
that?
That was supposed to be after my story of how I was tempted to be stingy with my food.
I understand.
But I accidentally skimmed over it.
But what a story to end on, Laura.
Okay.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
It's inspiring.
Wow. Very inspiring.
God can do supernatural things even today. He's still doing them. Don't forget that, and believe that He can and will do it for you.
Amen. Amen. Laura, thanks for coming in today
Thanks
and
for
sharing
having
so
me.
much today here on the Vine Morning Show. It's been such a pleasure.